It's my welcome. Just the mic here a little bit. Good evening and welcome to DDD Projects, or 3D Projects if you want to call it that. Tonight we'll be talking about a common question I see in our forums, the AD5X Flash Forward user group and the Creator 5 and 5 Pro user groups on Facebook. A lot of you are always asking, where can I find files? Or can you make me these files? Or how do I make these files? So we end up with a lot of questions along that line. So tonight I'll give you a little help, point you in the right direction, and hopefully we can come up with some good ideas on where to find files. First question I often see are, what are the difference between the file types? There are different file types when you download files. There are the STL files, there are the 3MF files, and there are G-code files, and there are zip files. What are the difference between those four, and what difference does it make when it comes to your printer? If we switch over here to our screen, we'll notice that on this particular model, some of the files are in STL, some of the files are in MF3, and on occasion, especially on printables, you'll find one that also says G-code. And finally, we don't have one here, is zip.zip. So the first one most people are familiar with are STLs. Those are the general 3D printer files. Simple file, you download it, then you drag it into your slicer, and that's what works. Now, as we move into color printers with multiple colors and different styles, we run into an MF3 file. It's slightly the same and slightly different. It contains the STL file as well as the files that show what printer was used to print that item. So if you have a SnapMaker printer and you save your files in 3MF and you give it to somebody with an AD5X, you may get an odd error here and there, and that's nothing to really worry about. You just need to go into your slicer and change it back to the printer that you have. And then you should be able to go ahead and print it normally, and it should have all the colored parts in it, just like the display shows. The next one is a G-code file, and it simply says G-code. G-code is the actual numbers, actually data that gets sent to the printer after the slicer picks it. So on Prusa's website, you'll see more G-code files because they set their website up to be able to drag the G-code straight to any of their printers. However, that is not a good thing to do with most printers, because the bed sizes are different, the heating is different, filaments could be different, and all of that has already been hard-coded in the G-code. So my advice to you is avoid the G-code, the .g-code files, stick with the STL, stick with the 3MF. Final file type is ZIP. And all a ZIP file is all the files, all the pieces, all these individual parts put together in one file. So when you download it, if you download the whole thing, you'll end up with this ZIP file. And what you have to do with it after you download it is you have to right-click on the file and look for, well, I won't show it here, look for extract. Let's see if I can find a good example here. I've got a lot of stuff, don't I? Scroll through this. You guys got as much stuff as I do out there? There we go. How about this one? Zip. So right click on it, go down to extract all. It'll open up in Windows and want to extract that file. May need to replace the old files. And now you can see you have the individual files. Here's your STL files and stuff. And that's how you open a zip file, and then you can drag it from there right into your slicer. The next interesting thing we see when it comes to files is the licensing. Get a lot of questions. Can I sell this? Can I give it to a friend? Can I modify it and make it look the way I want to? What you need to do is when you find a file to download is review the licensing. Here on the Prusa site, it's pretty straightforward. You can share it with or without arbitration. That means, do I have to put the person who wrote this, their name? So if you're going to sell it, you have to put their name up here at the very top, sousaphone, on a paper, on a plaque, somewhere in your booth so that whoever's buying it knows who made the original item. The next one here is remix culture allowed. That means, can I modify this file? Can I make it have different sizes or different shapes or modify the texture? Commercial use is the big one here. Can I sell it or not without paying you anything for it? Commercial use. If it's checked for commercial use, yes, you can sell it. There may be a few stipulations here and there, but basically you're free to sell it. If there's a red X there, if it's marked no commercial use, you cannot sell that file without permission from the person who wrote it, designed it. A couple other things. Does it meet free definitions and culture works? If you click over here on the side, you can read in detail all about these different licenses and what they include. Each site has their own different set of licenses, but they're all pretty similar to this. So if you're going to make something and give it away, check and make sure that it's okay to do that before you do. Now let's get into the fun stuff. Since we're already here, let's start with printables. Printables is probably one of the newer websites that offers files made by Prusa printers to help support the printers, and then they opened it all up to everyone else. So if you go to printables.com, you can log in and create an account if you'd like. Otherwise, we're going to look at 3D models here. And on the page, we can see it starts out with a whole lot of stuff. So how do you sort through all this stuff? Start here in the middle. You've got what's trending. These are the more popular things going on. If we click on new updates, that shows things that people are just now uploading. You can see some of these are minutes, if not hours new. And you can go through those and see one you like. Also downloads. This one is how many downloads the file has had. So the more downloads, the more popular. The one called makes is the amount that people have actually made. So if we look here at the shoehorn, we can see that 81 people have made a variation or a picture of this particular item. And it helps you figure out if it's something you really want to pick. The other one here is likes. Over here you got a little like symbol. And if people really like your stuff, it'll show up towards the top of this page, and you can sort through and find all kinds of neat things that other people are printing and enjoying. So how do you get these files? Well, let's go back to trending. Maybe one with this cable holder from VC Design. So we'll go ahead and click on it. You can see here's a brief little description of it. If we like it, we can click the like. If we want to save it to our favorites, there's a favorites button. If we want to read a little about it, there's usually a description, some information, where the original model came from, and we talked earlier about licensing. See, this one says no sharing or redistribution of the files or derivatives, no remixing, and no commercial use, personal use only. So how do we get these files? If we click download, we can download the files. If we do the all models, it copies everything on the website, including the notes and text and stuff, as well as the STL files. The other option Just clicking here under Files, and it'll bring it to the same space. I usually click on Download. It will give us an option to save it, and just click Save. From there, you can drag that file into your slicer, and you will have that file. Now remember, you may need to rotate it, or if it's not quite the right size, you can make it bigger or smaller in your slicer and those sort of things. So that's always something fun to do. As we move on to our next place to find files is Thingiverse. Thingiverse is probably the oldest repository for STL files and a great place to find a lot of stuff. It has changed ownership over the years. It is currently owned by My Mini Factory, which is another place to find files. And they're doing a pretty good job of cleaning up the site after all these years. They tend to promote more realistic and less AI-based designs. So if you want to kind of avoid the AI stuff, this is probably a better place to look. And it is full of all kinds of stuff. So again, here's our different types. We can choose popular, we can choose newest, and we can choose most makes. Good old baby group there. Again, if we want to download all the files, we can, or we can just click on the Files tab, and then we can just download individual pieces. Again, if we're going to look at our license, here are their shortcuts for the license. So feel free to take a look at Thingiverse and see if there's something interesting there that you can find. The next site we're going to look at is pretty popular, pretty new. It's MakerWorld by Bamboo. Here, we can go to makerworld.com and see all the things it has. It has a lot of stuff on this site. We're going to actually cover in two pieces. First, we'll just go over models like this, and then we'll go over the design section they have on how to make different models and signs and all kinds of neat stuff. So, again, pretty similar. See the style here, trends, items that are boosted up, newest of items, and the most frequent downloads and things like. And I kind of like this one. It's the random button over here. You can just click it and it'll take you to random things throughout the site. So we're going to click on models. We'll pick this cute little critter. This downloads a little bit different. If you're using a Bamboo printer, you can download it directly into the slicer. If you have a color printer, you can do the MF3 file, or if you just have the black and white printer, black and white, single color printer, you can just download the STL. And it'll download it in a zip file that you have to expand. Again, there's a lot of information about it, and their licensing is worded slightly different, but it's all listed over here. You can feel free to check that out. So those are some basic sites to find files. Now there are a whole bunch of other ones, so let me give you a little secret. The site is called Yeti.com, and Yeti goes out and searches all the sites we've talked about and some others to find a particular design. So up here in the search bar, we can type in what we want to search for. And it will take just a minute. Make sure we're not a bot. And it will go out and find us. It looks like very many bears. Whoa, that's a little bear. Bears and stuff. So, there's all the models that it found. And let's take a look at this one. We click on this, and where's it going to take us? Maybe nowhere. Looks like a cow, not a bear to me. And this one took us to Colts 3D. Colts 3D is a pretty good place. I find it to be more expensive modifying individual files, but it's an option there for you. So, Yagi.com searches a whole bunch of different websites for information. Now, what if you have a design and you want to make it look a little different? If we go to Bump Mesh by CNC Kitchen, you can do just that. We can go back to our files and pick a cuddly little elephant here. Ignore my error there. And instead of being just a typical STL, it now has a pattern. And we can choose what kind of pattern we would like that critter to have. Probably better for vases and flat things. Might put a little texture there on a critter. But down here you can make adjustments. More texture, less texture. You can change the scaling. If you want to exclude items, maybe you don't want the face that way, you just want it smooth, or the hat. You can do those sort of things. And then here towards the bottom, you can export it, the STL, or you can export it as an MF3. So that's a way to modify and add some skin, some textures, some fuzzy skin, if you want to call it that, to your item. Now, what if you need some organization? Gridfinity is a bunch of boxes that you can use to store your stuff in. Here, I've got my speaker box, and inside you can see you have these trays where you keep all your parts in. So this website, and you can search on the other sites for Gridfinity, and they will come in a variety of shapes and styles and things for organization. Keep my Post-it notes in here. There we go, Post-it notes. And it's got this fancy grid on the back, and it plugs into a base plate so it doesn't slide around. So let's take a look at that website real quick. So it consists of a base plate, and you can make these any size you want. If you need to fill a drawer in your cabinet in your garage, or set them outside somewhere on your desk, you can do that. So then you would download your grid, and then, oops, one too many signs. Or you can make a basic bin if you just need one. If you need two of them together, or maybe you need a big roll. So that makes it easy, prints out quick, and there's lots of adjustments you can make on it too. Do you want the magnets in the bottom? There's places for magnets, and if you turn that off, then it's just a flat bottom, as you can see there. Go with a cylinder style. Oops, that would be the middle, or you just want a standard. Also notice there's, can we see it here, a little finger scoop there. We turn that off if we want. And you can go about designing just about anything you want, box-wise. Now, if you go on several different sites, you can search up the tool you're looking for. If you have like a caliper, then you can look up a caliper box, and the box will actually have where it'll sit in nice and flat. You can get to it. The big selling point of this is it is not a storage solution. It is a useful solution, with the idea that the parts sit up and out so you can actually use them on your desktop or in your area, and they're not hidden and stacked away where you can't see them, where they're out in the open, and that makes it really handy. Next thing we'll take a look at, we'll go back to Maker World, and we're going to look up the Maker Lab. Here in Maker Lab, they use AI to make a whole bunch of useful things that might come in handy for you. We'll take a look at a few of them. Here's Mesh Graffiti. This is similar to what we've already looked at the bump mesh, if you remember. Print You is kind of cool. You can take a picture of yourself and upload it, and it will create a figurine that looks like you. While that's loading, let's see, what do you think? What do you think? Not the world's greatest print. Is it me? It's close. Close it's gonna get. So here you go. You can see where that print came from. It'll convert it into an STL or an MF3 file, and you can have fun with that. Make yourself into an action hero. If you're into Christmas ornaments, you can create Christmas ornaments here. There is a light box maker, a little more complicated, but it's a fun project to do. Couple flexi toys down here. And you can check all these out. And if you want to make little critters, go to Print Mod Maker. Here you can type in some random text, what you'd like to make. Dog with big floppy ears and a long tail. Let's see what it comes up with. You can give it more detail if you're skilled at that. And we'll see what it comes up with here. Oops, let me switch back so you can play along. There we go. Oh, and there's our dog. We click on Hatchet and it will convert it into an MF3 file. You can download it and then you can print it. This one might be a little challenging with the ears. You'll definitely need to turn supports on. All right, so that's how you create your stuff. What if you're into cosplay? What if you want to create helmets? Try Galactic Armory. Galactic Armory does helmets, weapons, and entire suits if you really want to do that. So that is pretty cool. War Machine here. They are priced individually, or you can buy them as an entire set. And they are quite impressive. I've printed off a few. Need some power armor helmet, swords, and all kinds of neat stuff. How about miniatures? Where can you get some miniatures? My personal favorite is Fat Dragon Games. They have Classic Crypt miniatures. These are all FDM supported files so that you can print them without having to have supports. And they come out very clean and very nice. Let's see, I've got one here from their latest Kickstarter. See if he shows up. Maybe the brown won't be that way. There we go. And a couple more. Started painting this one. Haven't got too far with it yet, but working on the shading on that one. He looks a little creepy, doesn't he? They have a lot of other neat things on this site if you're interested. If you need terrain for your games, they have terrains and walls and caves and dungeons and all kinds of stuff. They have a new Starbase game called Valkyrie. You can print these. They turn out pretty cool. Let's see, I think I've got one here. There we go. Ah, crash and burn. And yes, that is printed on the AD5X, so those are actual colors. So what if you want something totally new and totally different and nobody else has? Good old Kickstarter. If you go to Kickstarter in the easiest way, if we just type STL, we will find a crazy bunch of files that are available. Now let's take a look at this chest. So the thing about Kickstarters are that they may or may not deliver the product, to be honest. So you pledge an amount down here in the corner. This is £5 or about $6, and they will deliver this around June once the fundraiser is finished. This fundraiser is got 9 days left. So you can take a look at the files. They look pretty detailed there, look pretty good. I have found with most 3D projects, they do fulfill them and they are able to get them out pretty quick. It's a little bit easier to design these things versus a solid physical product that are also available on Kickstarter. So if you want something unique, that's where I found Fat Dragon Games, and they turned out pretty well. So maybe you're a little skilled, more skilled than the rest of us. Maybe you've took up some engineering and mechanics in school, or maybe that's part of your daily job, or you have to make something that's practical, a day-to-day item. How in the heck do you make something out of CAD? Well, let's start off with Tinkercad. It's made by Autodesk. It is a very user-friendly, beginner-friendly CAD system. And we will create a 3D design here at tinkercad.com. Plenty of videos on the internet about how to make things. But you start out with your plain deck here. You can pick a shape, many shapes and sizes, and bring it out. And if you just want to do a simple cube, you can go over to export, export it as STL, and you're good to go. Now maybe you need to adjust the sizes. Over here you can increase the length, the width, and the height of the object. If you want to make something like this and you need to cut a hole in the middle of it, you can group these together and it turns it into a hole. So that's the basic stuff. You can do a lot more stuff than just the basic. If you have a item, maybe an STL you downloaded, and it wasn't quite the way you wanted it, you can bring it in here and you can cut a hole in it, make a flower pot out of it, modify it any way you want, if the license allows you, of course. We'll scroll through my personal stuff here. And you can have some ideas of things I've worked on. Anything from Gridfinity boxes to some planters. To some signs. And even these complex shapes. These are grips that attach to the bow of a violin, and they help a beginner violinist place your pinky exactly where it goes. So spent a little bit of time designing those. That was kind of fun. Now, if you're in the business world or you need a actual CAD program, there are several out there, and there's Fusion 360. There is FreeCAD, and there is Onshape. I wish I knew CAD. I wish I could do this stuff. It's a little bit beyond me. But with this, you can actually give all the measurements, come up with precise, detailed design work, and automate and even animate some of that, depending on what you're doing. So, wish I knew more about CAD. It's one of those things I wanted to learn, but just haven't had the time. And the last group is for those that want to design their stuff, but maybe are a little more artistic, a little more creative. And that's where we would try, oops, wrong one, Blender. Blender is a artistic program, and it's a little bit beyond what I can do, but I know a few little things. It will allow you to change shapes and sizes of things, transform objects. Instead of being extremely precise, you want a circle that's 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters, it has blending tools and shapers and a whole lot of things, so you can smooth out. If you think of it as molding an object with clay, it's more that texture-based artistic stuff. And it is available here at blender.org. It is a free program, and there are lots of videos to teach you how to do that. So, I hope you've learned a little bit this evening and found these sites to find files and projects and improve your things interesting. Until the next time, I think next week we will have some more interesting topics. We'll see you again on Tuesday around 9 p.m. Don't forget, coming up in 2 weeks in Goshen, Indiana is MRF, the Midwest's largest 3D printing festival. I will be there, and I'll be hosting the filament exchange booth. So if you have filament that didn't match, or maybe you bought too much of it and you want to share it with other people in the community, bring it on with you, trade up with another person, and have fun. So that's MRF on June 12th through the 14th in Goshen, Indiana. Till next time, have a good evening.